My clock says 9 o'clock Pacific time. So we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Before we get rolling, I want to remind everyone that we are recording this morning's session. And that is so that we can post the recording on our website so families can view it another time if they're not able to make it this morning, or if it's such a riveting hour and you'd like to see it again, you'd have the opportunity to do so after today. My name is Sarah Nordoff. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management at Catlin Gables School. And today kicks off the start of our open house virtual events that we are holding throughout the month of October. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're holding events for families who are considering admission to the school, and we hope that you'll join us for many of those. Today's topic is an overview of the admission process. And we are going to do our best to provide you with an overview generally, and then more specifically about the beginning and lower school and the middle and upper school process, and leave plenty of time at the end for questions. My colleagues, Zoe, Edel, and Hare. Zoe, can you wave?
Good morning.
Director of Beginning and Lower School Enrollment, and Mary Brown.
Good morning.
Director of Middle and Upper School Enrollment. Will go a little deeper into those divisional processes after I say a few general words about enrollment to kick us off. You can write your questions into the chat while we're talking today. As I mentioned, we will leave time at the end for Q&A, but feel free to write your questions into the chat and we'll address them towards the latter half of our time together. But if you're like me and you forget your question unless you write it down, you can feel free to do that and put it in the chat. I do want to say that this is such a disappointing way to interact with all of you for us. We really love having events on our campus, meeting new families, engaging with you in person is why all of us do this work. And it's hard for us to do this in a virtual way. So know that this is how we're feeling, and we're going to do our best to try to connect with you virtually. I do encourage you to schedule some time with Mary and Zoe later on this month or this fall, whatever time works for you. Schedule a tour or a drop-in session, some time where they can get to know you in a more personal way, because that's really what we are trying to do through this process. A couple of quick words about Catlin Gables School for anyone who is not as familiar with our school. We are a progressive independent day school in Southwest Portland. 773 students are enrolled at the school this fall, and they span grades preschool through 12, representing 55 different zip codes. So they come from all over the Portland metro area and beyond. Our preschoolers are on campus this fall, and our K-12 students are all learning remotely along with the rest of the city for the most part. Our campus is lovely. We miss it very much this time of year, especially. It's beautiful in the fall. 67 acres. It takes about 10 minutes to drive to downtown Portland from the campus. And 28% of our students receive financial assistance for tuition, and another 45% of our students identify as people of color. You can obviously find out a lot more information about the facts about the school on our website, catlin.edu. The mission is Catlin Gable fosters curious and compassionate citizens of the world by inspiring in every student a love of learning and the courage to take responsible action. And our values are inclusion, integrity, and kindness. We have a lot of guiding principles of our enrollment process, but I'm going to talk about 3 today that I think are particularly important for you all to know as you begin your engagement with us in the admission process. And the first one is that we lead with our mission and values. And I'm going to go back so you can see the mission and values while I talk about them. For every step of our process, whether it's building relationships with families from the very beginning to guiding our admission committees on their work to ultimately selecting candidates for admission in the spring, we are grounded in our values of inclusion, integrity, and kindness. And we think about what all of those behaviors mean as we conduct our process throughout the cycle. We are also very much grounded in our mission. It is a living, breathing mission for us at Catlin. It's not something that's written down and hidden in a strategic plan somewhere. We really do think about the mission of the school and inviting students to Catlin who will thrive, who will make the most of the experience there, and families who really believe in the mission and really understand what it means to be at a progressive school. We also try to be as transparent and as accessible as we can. We know that the admission process can feel very mysterious, can feel very much behind the curtain. How does it all work? And we want instead for you to feel informed and supported through the process. So there are no silly questions. The takeaway for all of you, I hope, with this principle is that you get your questions answered, and you make sure that you attend the events and attend the tours and find ways of making sure that you become as informed as you can, and you push us to provide the information that you need. So please do that along the way. We also honor the individuality of each applicant. There is no prototype of the perfect candidate for admission to the school. And I think sometimes families feel like there is some sort of type of student that we're looking for. And the reality is that we're looking for students who are authentic human beings, who have strengths and talents and flaws and areas of growth. And we know that all of those ways in which they are authentic human beings adds to the rich diversity of the classrooms and to the discussions that happen in those classrooms. And it's important to us to bring students of many different backgrounds to the school so that we can have that the best education, we can provide the best education possible. So again, the takeaway there is to be yourself. Any students that are on the webinar today, be yourself, and for families to help us to really understand and get to know your students for who they are. This is a quick overview of some numbers. If you like to see numbers as you pursue your research about the school and the admission process. This is the enrollment range for all of our grades. So the numbers of students that are in each grade, not class size, but each grade for the school. And then the average number of new students that come into the school. So you can see that the largest entry points for us are preschool, kindergarten, 6th, 7th, and 9th grades. And we bring in new students to every single grade every year for the school. So what I hope families who are with us today that are looking at other grades and see some of those other numbers, that you're not discouraged, that you know that we do bring in students to every grade. I always counsel families, if you don't apply, then there's certainly not going to be an opportunity for admission. And the important thing here is just to have the context and, again, the transparency around what the numbers are. But hopefully this is helpful to give you some sense of what they are. And this information, I believe, is also on our website. And then finally, in terms of the factors that play a role in the ultimate enrollment decisions that we make, this is an incredibly complex process, as you can imagine. And at a high level, these are the main drivers of that selection process. Certainly the admission committee feedback, and Mary and Zoe will speak a little bit more about that for their divisions in a moment. The number of spots that we have in each grade, what is our capacity for bringing in new students? We know that because re-enrollment for us happens before new enrollment. So we have a pretty good sense of how many students we can select for admission for the following year. And then what does the current cohort need? What is the mix of students in that grade in terms of personality, in terms of learning needs, in terms of diversity of all different kinds? What is it that would complement that cohort? We think about that question when we're making admission decisions. Institutional goals and priorities, that's everything from advancement priorities to affiliations with the school, alumni children, employee children, siblings, keeping families together. Those are all layers that factor into the ultimate decisions that are made. And lastly, financial assistance. While we have a generous financial assistance budget, and it's an important part of who we are as a school, it's not limitless. So we do have to keep in mind what the budget is every year and And that is a factor that plays a role in the ultimate decisions that we're able to make in a balanced way. We'll say all of these in a balanced way. So with all of these in mind, and with a little bit of magic and pixie dust, we're able to make some strong decisions for enrollment when the time comes around. So I'm going to stop there and hand it over to Zoe, who will speak more about the beginning and lower school process.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this webinar this morning. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Zoe, and I'm the director of beginning and lower school enrollment. So beginning and lower school is preschool through 5th grade at Catlin Gable. And I just want to give a general overview to begin with of what this admission cycle looks like. So in the fall, that's a chance for you to get to know us and for us to get to know you. And that can happen through a virtual tour with myself, or we can have a chat as well via Zoom. There's open house events, as Sarah mentioned, throughout October. And that's a chance for you to hear from the beginning and lower school leadership team, from teachers, from community members. There's also info sessions, which will happen in December and in January. So lots of opportunities for you to get to know us. The next step is to create an account in Veracross, which you've all done to attend this webinar. But if you haven't, if you're watching this recording, we use Veracross for our admission portal. And in the application, that's when you start the application. So there's forms to submit. There's an opportunity to request a teacher evaluation, to request school records, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then there's the deadlines. And so we're not a rolling admission. It's not as if when an application arrives, that's when a decision is made. We wait until we have all the applications. And the early EAGLE deadline is December 17th. That's a reduced fee in terms of the application. And the regular deadline for preschool through 5th grade is January 21st. And decisions are released March 5th. And then the enrollment agreements are due back March 17th. So that's a general timeline of the application for preschool through 5th grade. All right, Sarah, next slide. Sorry, Sarah, next slide.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so the application itself. The tour is a required step in the application. And unless you've had a tour last year with myself, we can waive the tour. Or if you'd like to have a phone conversation, if you've got a little bit of a screen fatigue, I'm happy to have a phone conversation as well. But that's a required step in the process, is to meet with me and for me to get to know you as well, and to answer any of your questions. The next part of the application is parent guardian questions. These are short answer, just another way for us to get to know your family, to hear about your hopes and dreams for your child's education, to hear about, what do you enjoy doing together when you have downtime, all of those types of things. And the next step is the teacher evaluation, which needs to be requested after November 1st. Many preschool applicants might not have a teacher evaluation because they're not currently in school, and that's totally fine. However, a teacher evaluation, we can waive that on our end, but a teacher evaluation is required for applicants if they do have a current teacher. And school records, again, preschool applicants might not have school records, but we ask if they do have school records, the current school year as well as the past 2 years. And so, for example, applicants to 5th grade would have the current 4th grade school records as well as the past 2 years. And then in lieu of a student visit, we usually have a student visit every year where we actually meet all the students on campus. And because we're not able to do that, we've created video snapshots, and that is a way for us to get to know your child. And just like Sarah said, that there's no perfect prototype or candidate to Catlin Gable, there's no perfect video. This is just a chance for us to see your unique child and for us to get to know them. And this is not something that needs to be performed or rehearsed. It's just something, it's a snapshot and a moment in time. And more information about that will be shared in just a second. And then applicants to grades 3 through 5 will be asked to submit a writing sample, just a piece of writing that they're really proud of. And there's prompts that are in the application as well. And this is the first time we've done this. We would have done this when they came to visit, but this is something that is now part of the application. And also a student meeting, which will happen virtually the first week in February. And that is applicants just grades 3 through 5. And more information about that is on the website for the student meeting. All right, next. All right, so what is a video snapshot? A video snapshot is a way for us to get to know your child in lieu of a student visit. And there'll be between 3 to 5 activities that you'll be asked to record your child doing, either with somebody else, like reading together or playing or sharing, maybe sharing a special a book that they've read that they really enjoy and talking about it a little bit. So just a chance for us to get to know their interests as well as and who they are. More information about this will be shared at the end of October. Right now, we're going to be releasing that at the end of October. And as I said, we want their unique traits to shine, and this is just a snapshot. And it's a chance for us to get to know each of the applicants in a unique and hopefully playful kind of a way. All right, next slide. Oh, sorry, Sarah, next slide. Oh, it is. All right, sorry. How are decisions made? This is a holistic process, meaning that we look at the whole application, we look at the whole applicant and the whole child, which is also one of our pillars of progressive education. And there's an admission committee, and the admission committee reviews, discusses each application, each child. We consider, as Sarah said, we consider the cohort that they're entering into. And the admission committee is really an advisory role for the enrollment department and gives recommendations with the goal that each child will be successful and thrive at Catlin Gable. And so the types of decisions that go out, which is, as I said, March 5th, the types of decisions is 3 different types, either a letter of acceptance, which, and these are sent via email, not by letters, but letter of acceptance, saying we're so excited to have you join our school, and sort of a welcome, and there's lots of information that'll be shared as well. The other decision is a wait pool letter, and that means that we just don't have enough spots. We just don't have the capacity or the space at this time. However, movement from the wait pool does happen, and it can happen all the way until school starts. And so that is still a possibility. It's just not going to happen at that initial March 5th deadline. So the majority of the applicants do receive a wait pool announcement simply because of the number of applications and the number of spots that we have. Then the third letter is a letter that is just, it's not going to be an entry point for this fall. And we encourage a future application to our school. Just that fall, maybe there needs to be more growth or more conversations, but we encourage a future application for that applicant. And so that's the general overview of beginning and lower school enrollment in terms of what the application looks like and the different steps. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mary Brown, my colleague who oversees the middle school and upper school.
Hi, everybody. I'm, as Zoe said, Mary Brown, and I'm the Director of Middle and Upper School Enrollment. So similar to Zoe's role, I work with families who are interested in learning about the school, and in particular, learning about middle school and upper school. And I help them through the application process. And then on the other end, I work with my colleagues and faculty in those divisions to review applications and make admission decisions. Thank you for being here. I'm going to just somewhat quickly go through a couple points. Similar to Zoe, it's good to know that the middle school and upper school application deadlines are different, as is the Palma Scholars program application deadline, and I will go briefly through that as well. But just a quick overview of the admissions cycle. Right now, tours are happening. They're virtual. They're individual tours, so it really does give you an opportunity to really ask whatever questions are specific to your child, and your child is, of course, welcome to be part of those tours. So those are happening now through typically February. They are optional, so that is different in middle school and upper school. They're highly encouraged, but they are optional. And if you're looking at upper school, those virtual tours will be with 2 of our student ambassadors. So you'll get sort of you'll get to know a couple students as they talk to you and show you some pictures of the upper school. And then there's always time reserved at the end to chat with me as well. So those are happening now. And then starting in November, for those, again, middle school and upper school applicants who are curious and interested in applying, so you don't have to have already officially, started your application, to do a virtual classroom observations. So in the past, this would be similar to like a student visit, or some schools call it a shadow day. But of course, right now anyway, those are all virtual. So there's a place on the website to sign up for those, and it's essentially about a half a day. It's 3 different Zoom classes, typically starting at about 9 and ending at around 1. With some breaks in between, including a break for lunch. For the upper school virtual classroom observations, there's also at the end of that half day of observations is just a quick debrief with whoever is observing that day and some of our upper school students. So it's just a chance for us to connect and for your child to connect with some upper school students, talk about the day, ask some questions, that kind of thing. And then separately, now is also the time, starting in November and going through early February is also time to register for what we call for upper school candidates, a virtual demo class. And it's back-to-back with a team challenge activity. So this is for applicants or those who are interested in applying to upper school. And it's an opportunity to be sort of actively engaged, although virtually. So you'll be part of a group of applicants on that particular session, and you'll be led by one of our faculty members, who's Dave Whitson, the director of the Palma Scholars program and a faculty member. And he will conduct a class that you don't need any previous knowledge on the subject matter. It's just a way for you to get a really good sense of sort of that active participation in a class. And then of course, it's also an opportunity for us to sort of get to know your child a little bit better. And then following that is what we're calling a team challenge activity. So again, with that same group of applicants, this will also be over Zoom, and that will be a sort of a fun problem solving activity for those applicants. For middle school, the demo class is not part of it. It is just a team challenge activity that you'd register for. That will take about an hour. And then also, if you do decide to go down the path of applying, starting in November, and you'll see this on the website, will be the opportunity to begin to request math and English teacher evaluations, meaning we have a form that you will electronically submit to your child's current math and English teacher. And they will have the opportunity to complete that form, which typically will take about 15 minutes or so. And then the other application pieces are also available now until February 1st, which is the application deadline for middle and upper school. And again, I'll mention the application deadline for the Palma Scholars program in a minute. So February 1st is when all of those things have to be submitted. And similar to all the other grades, March 5th is when we make our admission decisions known. And then families who are offered admission have until March 17th to make an enrollment decision. All right, next slide. So just a really quick review of the components of the application. And so this is the middle school application components. You'll see all of this through our admission portal. There's a series of what I would consider sort of short answer questions for your child, for the student. And those are really, they're designed for us to just get to know your child. There is a character limit, so just know we're not expecting or wanting pages and pages. And we want it to be from them, and we want them, and we want them to feel like they can be their real selves in responding to those questions. Similarly, there's a set of short answer questions for the parents and guardians, and kind of the same thing. We really want to know that you and your family and your child. We know that no child or family is perfect, so you should absolutely feel reassured that we want to just sort of see and read your real selves in those responses. And then I mentioned the classroom observations and the team challenge activities. And so those are pieces you can take, you can do those, register for them and complete them at any point in the application process, even before you've started maybe the questions for students and so forth. In fact, I typically advise families to consider registering for the classroom observations and the team challenge activities, because it can be a real natural motivator for students and give them an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the school as they're then starting to answer the questions for students. But you can do them at any point in the process. I mentioned the math and the English teacher evaluations, and those are electronic forms. As you're talking with your child's teachers, you can mention to them that those forms typically take uninterrupted about 15 minutes or less. And then again, just make sure that they are submitted electronically back to the admission office by the February 1st deadline. There are also school records, similar to beginning and lower school. We'd like, if available, this school year's records, and then the previous 2 years' school records. And then we also require for middle and upper school applicants an admission test, and the SSAT and the ISEE are two of the most common tests. And I do know that the SSAT test does have an at-home option. So you can read, we have a link to their website, and so you can read more about that entire process on the website. Okay, next slide. So really quickly, there are many similar pieces of the application for upper school as middle school. So I'm not going to run down each of those. Sort of the additions are that demo class that I described earlier. And again, that's back to back with the team challenge activities. So it's an hour of the demo class, and then you'll have a little bit of a break, and then you'll do the team challenge activity, which will be another hour. So that's you register for that just as a one-time thing. In addition, for upper school, we also ask for a writing sample, and so it can be for any subject. And it's just a sample of something that you have submitted and that has been graded, and ideally has some teachers' marks on it, that you're submitting for us to take a look at your writing. And then the admission tests, there are a few more admission tests options for those applying to upper school, such as the HSPT. And again, we list and describe or give you more information on our website. All right, next slide. And so I mentioned earlier, and we will have a session, by the way, that talks about the Palma Scholars program on October 12th. So if you're interested in learning more about that program, please tune in then. And we also have lots of information on the website. So I'm not going to sort of talk about the actual program, just mention that the deadlines are different. They're earlier. So rather than that February 1st deadline for upper school applicants, the Palma Scholars deadline is January 7th. And I should also mention that the program and the applications are open to incoming 9th graders. So if you have a child, if you're interested in a different grade, this would not be an opportunity for you. So it is a little bit earlier, January 7th. And then we notify those families or those students who are finalists on January 22nd. And then we will bring together and And stay tuned if that'll be in person or virtually, those finalists for a finalist day on February 5th. And then those who are chosen as scholars will be notified on February 12th with a couple of weeks to make a decision about that. The Palma Scholars application is very similar to the upper school application. And if you're not chosen as a scholar, then your child's application immediately goes into the general 9th grade applicant pool. The additional components of the application for Palma are what we call the Palma addendum. So those are just some additional questions that we'd like the student to answer. And then because one of the 4 pillars of the Palma Scholars program is that the applicant needs to be a pretty high performing athlete, we also require an evaluation form from at least one coach. So that's an additional piece. All right, next slide. So really, I'm going to just sort of echo lots of what Zoe said in terms of it is a very holistic admission decision process for middle school and upper school as well. We also have a committee, faculty and staff committee that individually reviews the files and then comes together to discuss and essentially plays an advisory role for those final decisions. Similar to the younger kids, we look for evidence of potential to be successful and to thrive at the school. We're looking for kids who are curious and courageous in terms of wanting to sort of take academic risks and so forth. And then we also, of course, look for what is that student's potential to enrich the learning community. So as Sarah mentioned, we're not looking for a very sort of specific student, but rather what is the potential to enrich the diverse learning community. Similar or the same really as the beginning and lower school, we have 3 different types of decisions. Those decisions all are sent via email. And the first is an offer of admission, which means similar to sort of college admission, the ball is now in your court and you can have an opportunity to ask some final questions or learn a little bit more and then make a decision about whether or not you want to enroll. And then the second sort of decision is an offer to the wait pool. And we do call it a wait pool, not a wait list, because it's not a ranked list. And we do make offers of admission from that wait pool if openings occur from March to all the way up till school starts. And then the hardest decision to deliver is sort of a not this year decision. So we're not able to offer you a spot in the class or in the wait pool, but we absolutely want to encourage you to consider applying in the future, that it's just for this year only. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mary and Zoe. I'm going to stop share because it's easier for me to see questions that come in the chat. So this is now your opportunity, everyone, to ask us some questions. And the way to do that is to type them into the chat. And we may not get to all the questions today because we only have until 10 o'clock. And if that is the case, please seek us out in these other ways that Mary and Zoe had mentioned, or you can just email the enrollment team, enrollment@catlin.edu, and we're happy to answer your questions in another way. So don't despair if we don't get to your question today. I'm going to scroll up to the top. So I'm going to facilitate the questions, and Mary and Zoe are going to answer the majority of them here. Let's see.
And I just wanted to point out, Sarah, so the 2 other people that you're seeing in this webinar, Chris Durow and Ellen, they're colleagues of ours, in case you were wondering.
Yes, sorry, we have these black squares lurking in the background. They are people that we know. They're not Zoom bombing us. Okay, so first question, Mary, is for an upper school candidate. The daughter is currently in grade 9. Is there from Germany, also a US citizen. Is it possible for her to apply for grade 10 at Catlin Gable?
Absolutely. And you might not remember the slide that Sarah posted a little bit earlier, but we absolutely accept applications to 10th grade and typically admit some students to 10th grade every year. I think the average is about 3 students. So absolutely, you can apply.
Great. This is a question about financial assistance. I'll take this one. I will say that we are having a session specifically about financial assistance in 2 weeks from now. So anyone who's on the webinar today that has more specific questions about that, please come to that webinar. It's, I think, also at 9 o'clock. And if you're not able to attend, that, of course, that's fine, and we'll record it and have it on the website as well. Or you can always contact me. My colleague, Mary Jacob, is the Director of Financial Assistance, and she's obviously a great resource too. This question is, it's clear how financial assistance would affect the student's decision to attend, but how does it contribute to the selection criteria from Catlin's perspective? So essentially, we assess current families' financial assistance first, because when we bring a family into the school, our commitment is for the tenure of their time at the school in terms of their financial assistance. Families have to reapply every year to make sure that they still, quote, qualify for that assistance. There may be a change of circumstances that changes the amount. That's not typical. Sometimes it happens. But anyhow, we want families to feel like when they come to Catlin that they can stay and that we'll support them from a financial assistance standpoint for the duration. So once all of that budget is assessed, we then have monies left over that we can contribute towards new families. And so we, in doing that in the selection process, have a certain budget for all new students. And Mary and Zoe and I try to, as best we can, distribute that evenly across divisions, because we don't think it's healthy to have one division be particularly top heavy with students who need financial assistance versus another. We know that that enriches the community in so many ways, and it's important for that to be true in all divisions. So we make those distributions, and we have a certain amount of money that we can apply towards students who are coming, who need that FA. And then we have to make some hard decisions. We always have candidates. We have more candidates who we would like to admit who need financial assistance than we're able to take. It's more need sensitive at the wait pool stage. It's somewhat need sensitive at the out of the gate admission stage, but it's much more need sensitive at the wait pool stage. And that's because we use up all of those monies in our first round of admission. Sometimes it comes back because a family who's received aid decides to go somewhere else, that comes back in the budget, and we have something to use for wait pool, and sometimes not. So I think that's good for families to know. But anyhow, that's essentially how it works at the selection stage. Okay, let's see. In this year's version of the application, responses to parent questions cannot be saved in draft format. Portal requires answers to be submitted in order to be saved. Previous format was helpful in allowing application to be completed in smaller chunks, one question at a time, and also allowed for revisions prior to submission. Is that a setting that could be changed? I actually don't know the answer to that. I know Mary and Zoe, if you do. We're having a session next Monday on the portal and navigating the portal and the ins and outs and some of the quirks, honestly, of the portal. So we can certainly answer that question there.
I don't think it can be changed, and I would suggest writing it in a Word document or some other composer, and then saving it there, and then cutting and pasting it into Veracross. That would be my advice. Thanks,
Zoe. So question about mid-year admission. We don't have candidates come in mid-year. We only have students at this moment starting in the fall. So I'm sorry about that, because I think it could be great for students to come in mid-year, but just the arc of our curriculum, the way in which we operate as a school right now, it's not possible to come in mid-year in any grade. So for middle school candidate, Mary, the English and math teacher is the same person. Would you recommend that they should write a second evaluation from someone else?
Thank you for asking that question. And reminds me, I should have just mentioned that. So those teachers are not sort of writing recommendation letters, right? They're completing a form that we've created, and it is a different form for math as is for English. And so, yes, if it's the same teacher, which it often can be, especially for students applying to 6th grade and they're currently in 5th grade. So yes, if I hope that's going to be okay for them to fill out both the math evaluation form and then separately the English evaluation.
Great. Thanks, Mary. This is a question about the uncertainty with COVID. Wants to understand about the current thinking, decision-making process at Catlin for getting back to in-person schooling. There's a lot we don't have control over there. Private schools are bound to the same metrics that public schools are. So while we all wish that we were back at school and that kids were on campus, it's not possible for us to do that until the metrics by the executive order of the governor enable us to do that. Our preschoolers are on campus, as I mentioned earlier. They are under a different licensing than K-12. So with lots of parameters in place, they're able to be back on campus. K-3 is under somewhat different metrics than 4-12. So there may be an opportunity for K-3 to be back if the metrics get to the point where that's a possibility. And if we do come back K-3 first, it would be in a hybrid format. So that would probably be kind of a day on, day off format, enabling the social distancing that we would need to set up for that to happen. So we have a lot of leadership that's thinking and making decisions about all of this. We have a couple of committees that meet on a regular basis that are overseen by our assistant head of school. So we're giving it obviously a lot of attention and time in trying to do what we can to be prepared to come back in a safe way. But right now we're not able to do that.
I just wanted to add on that we are, in this time right now, with the students being remote K through 12, we're really focusing on wellness and social emotional learning and making sure that there's the students feel just joy and they can still interact and socialize with their friends in a virtual way. And part of what we did this year, we started a week early and we had small groups of 10 students come onto campus and be able to meet their teacher and meet their classmates, but in a really safe way, but on campus. And so that's just a huge consideration for us right now, is making sure that that sense of that joy and that internal motivation is still alive and well and thriving.
So this is a question about preschool. Is it better to come to campus for a tour with a preschooler or easier to talk with just the parents?
Probably the tours are just for grown-ups and not, but for in a virtual way, sometimes, you know, there'll be that the preschooler will just kind of pop in and say hi, and then we can have a conversation. But when the tours are on campus, they're just for grown-ups. And right now we're not having any tours on campus. It's all virtual.
Great. This is a question about how, or is the admission office in Catlin in general making changes to meet the racial reckoning our country and city is going through? And yes, we are, as a school, thinking a lot about that. We have just developed a vision for trying to be an anti-racist school. And that is being led by our Director of Inclusion and Outreach, Jasmine Love, along with our Board of Directors, who's very involved in the anti-racist work that's moving forward. We're in, and as part of that vision, it's laying out concrete action steps that the board and our head of school and our Director of Inclusion is organizing for the school to move forward with. And those action steps have things, have different components to them that have to do with curriculum, have to do with hiring, and certainly we'll be taking a look at our admission efforts too, and ways in which we can do better on this front. So yes, we're taking that I would argue, quite seriously at the school. Zoe and Mary, would you add anything else to that?
I would just say that Jasmine is going to be doing a presentation later this month and talking specifically to that inclusion work at Catlin.
Great, thank you. Are you able to share what colleges Catlin Gable students go to, Mary, after high school?
We are. Well, what I'll share with you is that there's some great information on our website. If you click into the upper school area and then college counseling, and there'll be some information about what colleges our graduates have gone to over, I think it's the last 3 years. And you'll see that it's a really nice wide range of schools.
If you're coming from another state, should you do a virtual tour or do you still need to come to campus? All of our tours are virtual right now. So that's the upside for families who are coming from outside of Portland. Everything is done virtually at this point. So no matter where you are, it will be a virtual tour. If that changes, if anything changes in our on-campus presence or cycle, we'll let families know. But for the foreseeable future, all of our admission processes will be virtual going forward. Does the virtual student visit apply for middle schoolers as well, Mary, as upper schoolers?
Yes, the middle schoolers will have the opportunity to, or actually be required if you're going to apply, to do the classroom observations. So that would in the past have been sort of what schools call a shadow day, right? But this time it'll be over Zoom. So they'll register for a day where they'll observe 3 different middle school classes over Zoom, and then they'll register separately for another day where that is just an hour, and that's what we call a team challenge activity. And so that's kind of a fun problem-solving activity that'll be a little bit more active. But yes, those 2 pieces are required as part of the application.
Mary, can you speak to what's happening this year with the athletic program for middle and upper school? And then what sports do we typically offer for those 2 divisions?
Yeah, yep. So, and there's some great information on our website around the sports that we offer. And so right now I don't actually know all the details, but I do know that kids are able to, in small groups, spend some time on campus. And then there's also, each of the coaches has a sort of virtual curriculum to help kids stay in shape and have sort of some guidance around the athletic endeavors. I feel like there was one other question around that.
What are the typical sports, Mary, that we offer?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so so volleyball, soccer, basketball, track, tennis, golf, baseball. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple.
Cross country.
Cross country. Yeah. And we have a no cut policy. And so if you want to be on a team, there will be a team for you. So while, all of our teams want to do really well and want to be successful, of course, and there is some competition to get that spot on a varsity team, we are a school where we want to really encourage students of all levels and experiences to be part of a sports team if they so choose. And students do. A very, very high percentage of our students in middle school and upper school are part of at least one athletic team.
I think we had 5 basketball teams last year in the middle school, didn't we?
Yeah,
We had a lot. Yeah.
We have a lot of spaces where they can practice.
Mary and Zoe, can you speak to if a family's applying and already has a student at Catlin, is there any difference in the process for that sibling who's applying? And maybe the same thing for if a family has more than one child applying to the school.
Do you want to take that, Zoe, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Yep. So I think it's helpful to just know that it is a really human process. And so humans are reading your application, your children's applications or your child's application and discussing it. And so it's not, we don't have a application process or a decision-making process that's sort of a point system where you get so many points if you are, you know, a sibling of a current Catlin Gable student and so forth, but those things are part of the conversation. We know that the current Catlin Gable families are hopefully happy with the school and believe in the school and support the school, and that's why they're applying for a second child. And so that's a piece of the conversation, but it doesn't sort of trump everything else. So it enters the conversation and decision, but there isn't sort of a guarantee of that. And same goes for if you aren't a Catlin Gable family, and you're applying for more than one child, that enters the conversation. We know that that can be really tough to potentially have one of your children be offered admission and not the other. And so we don't sort of guarantee that it's an all or nothing kind of thing, but it is something that enters the conversation, certainly. And something that impacts that sometimes are just the number of available spaces in a particular grade. It can be tricky for a couple of the grades where we just have a couple of spaces.
And what we do in that situation is we reach out to each of those families who have, say, two children applying to different grades, and ask the family to tell us what kind of decision that they would like, whether it's the same decision for both children or if they're okay with different decisions for their children. And so we want that to be very unique and individualized for the family's experience.
Zoe and Mary, what happens if a student is applying who's working above grade level?
Well, that will show through in the application, and that will show through in the school records and in the teacher evaluation. And, in terms of working above grade level, we differentiate the teaching at Catlin. And so we're able to meet all the students' needs, whether they're working at grade level, working towards grade level, or working beyond. And so that will just be a consideration in terms of the application. Did you want to add anything, Mary?
Only that we mean it when we say that it's a really holistic application process. So of course we're going to look at a student's academic records, but we are also going to attend to all the other pieces of the application that show how this student sort of has potential to shine in terms of his or her social, emotional growth and physical growth for that matter. So we absolutely will attend to sort of all those pieces. But will the student be a kind member of the community? Will they be courageous around the different ways that they'll contribute to the community? So we're going to look for all those things as well. I wonder a little bit if the question is, oh, if we're seeing on their records that they're doing, let's say, for example, they're in 5th grade and they're doing sort of 6th grade work, would we consider them then for the 7th grade or something like that? And that's not sort of typically the process. I'm happy to talk individually with families about that kind of a thing, but that is not our practice.
Right. And similarly, if you have candidates applying who have learning needs, how do we manage that in the application process?
Yeah, so that would start with the tour or the conversation with myself or Mary, and to just to ask questions and to understand what those learning differences might be, and to make sure that we can meet each child's needs. And we do have a learning specialist on staff in the beginning and lower school, a learning specialist in middle school and in the upper school, and as well as a counselor. And we also just have support in place, and we don't have other support that other schools might have as well. And so we just want to make sure that each student is going to be successful and thrive.
Yep, I don't really have anything to add. I know just from numerous conversations with the middle school and upper school learning center staff that they work really hard with teachers to make sure that a student who is at Catlin Gable who perhaps learns in a different way is supported with that. So, and I should just say that overall, we are a school that does believe and appreciate that everybody learns in a variety of ways. And so there isn't just sort of the one correct way or the one way that you could be successful at Catlin. And that sort of shines and shows through in lots of different ways that students can choose to show that they've sort of mastered a concept in their classes. They fairly often have some choice in how they're going to do that, and sometimes that can speak to or that they can use their strengths in terms of how they are as a learner to go down that road.
Great, thank you both. And this is a quick question. If a student applies to a certain grade in one division, do they have to reapply to the next division? And I will answer that and say no. Once a student has applied and is enrolled at the school, they can continue from one division to the next. So there isn't a reapplication process to go from 5th to 6th or 8th to 9th or K to 1. And there's a couple questions about fall of 2021. What's the plan for virtual learning for fall of 2021? And will it change anything in terms of our enrollment projections? And for the second question, we anticipate targeting a similar number of new students for next year. So I mentioned earlier that we're at 773 this fall. That's about what we'll target for next fall as well. So that won't change. What next fall will look like is a question I don't have the answer to. I surely hope that we'll be on campus in some capacity next fall, as everybody does. We are, as all good progressive schools, as iterating our remote and hybrid learning plans, and we're seeking feedback from our families and our students of how it's going. We changed a lot this fall based on feedback from last spring, and we'll continue to do that. So we'll see what it looks like for next fall, but we also know that there isn't a playbook on how to do this. So we're also learning as we go and trying to do it as best we can. Let's see. Question about the SSAT, Mary. Can somebody take the SSAT from SSAT China? Can they take the SSAT in China? Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. You can take it all over the world. As part of the registration process, I believe you enter the location that you're interested in, and then well, that's if you're doing it in person anyway, but the at-home test is available to anybody.
Great. And Zoe, for preschool, for the video snapshots, is it okay to include a video with an introduction by the parents and show the family a little bit in the preschool video snapshots? That'd be a question, I suppose, for all grades where we're doing that.
That's an interesting question. We're trying to keep the snapshots really short, just 1 to 2 minutes, and really focused on those activities, because on the back end, that's a lot of video to possibly go through, and wanting to make sure that we're really focusing on the student, and also considering just, in terms of the snapshots, equity and access for all the applicants. So I'll speak more about the video snapshots when the information is released, but for right now, I would say that it's just going to be footage of the activities that we're asking the students to do. Yeah.
Great. Mary, is the virtual class and challenge activity attendance optional, or is that a must-do for applicants?
It is required to complete the application process. You can do those early on. You can do them at any point in the application process as long as they're completed by February 1st. And as I mentioned, sometimes for some kids anyway, it's sort of nice to do those early in the process because it helps kind of inform their thinking about continuing on the application process.
Great. I'm going to do one more question for us, and then I want to show families the website where they can go to find out more information about our upcoming open house virtual events. And the last question is, what is a Catlin core differentiator compared to other schools? For example, an IB school, STEM, entrepreneurship, languages, what skill will every kid take away when they're done with their Catlin education?
You know, I think that the common denominator, I guess, for all of our graduates is they all are very comfortable in public speaking. They're all very, in terms of those 21st century skills of just communication, they're comfortable speaking to a small group or to a large audience because they practice that so often throughout their preschool through 12th grade experience in like assemblies or in presentations in the classroom or going off in their field studies to interview people. They are all just, they're very just thoughtful in how they communicate. And so that's what I would share. How about you, Mary?
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. It strikes me when I hear from alums of just and really just upper school students, their solid sense of self. Like they really have, like I said, a solid sense of who they are as a person and what their strengths are and what their areas of growth is. Or are, and then how to sort of maneuver through the world with that knowledge, knowing that we're all growing and changing. So those things will evolve, will grow and change. But they do, in addition to, excellent writing skills and great math skills and those kinds of things, I think they really just know themselves as a person in the world.
Great. Thank you both. I'm going to share my screen. And this is the Catlin Gable website. I just want to quickly show everyone before we wrap up today where you can find out more information about the open house events coming up later this month. If you go to our main web page and you go to the admission, to move our faces over, to the admission section from the menu, October open house events are at the top. You can scroll down and they are organized by general interest sessions, meaning admission and financial assistance, and those are all on Mondays. And then we have sessions for beginning and lower school, middle school, and upper school, and those are all on predictable days throughout the month of October. So for example, beginning and lower school, all of their events are on Thursdays. All of middle schools are on Wednesdays, and all of upper school is on Tuesdays to try to make it easy for you. And as you get into the accordion, you can see all the different events. We have this week coming up an opportunity to meet the faculty. The following week, we'll be focusing on students and families, and then the following week on community. And to register for all of these, as you did today, you can go right to the links at the bottom of the page. So we very much hope that you will attend a few more events. There's a lot of questions we didn't get to today, so please do sign up for a tour, for an info session with Mary and Zoe, and get your questions answered. We're here to help, and we're so grateful that you spent some time with us today. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.